Ultimate Sports Network proudly presents the first of the year Real Boxing Talk. Yes, it is a new year filled with New Hope and other Star Wars movies. And don't ask me, I have no idea. Uh, we have a lot of things to go over that ended last year, but a lot of things are we hope, happen this year. Once again, John and Charles are with us. Um, the concept of it being a new year, um, it's still the same vein right now of where we were at before. But I think we're going to get some more stuff. Hopefully the virus, we dare not speak its name, doesn't rear its ugly head any more than it already has. But we have a lot of stuff going on. Um, Charles, what is the next thing for you that you see?
Ooh, wow. Uh, Triple G against somebody, right? No, I'm just playing. But Triple G versus somebody. What I like to see though is we had Mr. Garcia, right, come along and had a nice little fight, and
Oh, he gave himself a new nickname, by the way.
yeah. So defeated Mr. Campbell and got knocked down in the second round, and then he comes out and says he wants Javante Tank Davis like immediately, like yesterday, like tomorrow, and things of that nature. Um, I would love to see that fight. I would love to see him fight a Devin Haney, right?
Hmm.
Somebody like that. But I think even though he said what he mentioned, I think that he kind of pulled back. Golden Boy pulled back a little bit and said, "Hey, yeah, you said that, but we're gonna when he's ready." And what that means is if he's not ready, we may not pull the trigger, even though he may have spoken out of turn. When he's not, if he's ready, we'll do that. But the fight I really want to see, I just want to get it out the way, and it's not going to happen that way. Um, let's just do it again, get the hell out the way, move on. Triple G versus Canelo. Let's just do it. It's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen that way because he had already said he wants to fight three other guys at 168 or whatever. But I think we should go and get that out the way. Do it Cinco de Mayo. Make the move. And if Canelo is the guy he says he is, dispose quickly of Triple G or whatever you need to be, beat him soundly, move on to the next one. That's what I would like to see happen, but I know it's not going to. That's okay.
Is it that it's the time we should basically be saying, okay, let's either put that man out to pasture so we can stop talking about him, or I'm tired of listening to this back and forth, back and forth. Let's get it on.
I think it's the it's the pasture thing for me. I mean, not saying he can't fight anybody, but it's like Canelo is specifically putting out the fillers or letting you know, in my opinion, by his actions, he's going to make that man wait. I'm going to 168. I'm going to fight some champions. I'm going to fight some people, even at maybe a 175 that not too many of you have heard of. But if I keep grabbing belts, that still makes me a champion. I still create my legacy because I'm grabbing this belt, I'm grabbing that belt. I mean, you go down the line. We're gonna talk about Plant, Benavidez, also Saunders. You just keep grabbing belts, but we clearly know that that's not the best competition for him. And I'm not even talking about going back down to 160 to fight Errol Spence. I'm talking about fighting Charlo, who's already said he will come to 168 to fight Canelo. But when you are the champion, you are the king of the ring or whatever, the number one guy, you can fly around and do whatever you want to. And now that he's a free agent, in regards to contract, there's nothing anyone can say or do to really stop him from taking this course of action.
Well, John, we mentioned, especially with our last show, about Henry Armstrong, about legacy, about pound for pound, about all these fun things. But are we looking at Canelo as, I guess the best way of putting it is, as Charles said, chasing belts as opposed to fighting fights? What seems to be more important, getting a good fight or chasing a belt to Canelo?
Well, now it seems like belts. They love the belts. You always hear them boxers say that. I love the belts. I want to be the unified champion. I want all the belts. You hear that a lot. He knows all about Charlo. And I don't think he really wants to fight Golovkin again. Not because he didn't think he could beat him. I think he's not even challenged by him anymore. He thinks he beat him twice, which is I would put him in politics for being delusional, thinking he beat him twice. But that's fine. But and then now he says, well, and this would be a great question if we ever have Jonathan Banks on. He wants Golovkin to move up to 168 to fight him, which I think Golovkin would do. But Eddie Hearn wants Golovkin to fight one of the young guns, like I said, Jamie Munguia, who's 36-0 with 29 knockouts, junior middleweight champion. But back to Canelo, Canelo is totally in charge. He can do what he wants. He wants to fight 3 times this year. That's great. He's a free agent, so he's in the driver's seat. But we all want to see him fight Charlo. He might still. He's 30. He's going to be 31 in 2021, right? But he's in no hurry, as we can tell. He's doing everything at his own speed. And Golovkin would be 39, and he said, maybe later in the year of this year. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I was Golovkin, I would tell him what he could do with himself. I'd say, look, I'm not waiting for you anymore, buddy. And he pretty much did a few months ago.
Right.
Fight. He did pretty much say, or last month, I'm not waiting. And he shouldn't, because he's kind of playing games, and Golovkin, he can still do well. And Jamie Munguia, as I said, would be a tough fight for a 39-year-old Golovkin. So I would play hard to get more than he does. I don't even care about that anymore. Who knows? Maybe it'll come around right at the end of this year, depending on things. But Canelo, it's just the way it is in boxing, you guys. You know this. He's in the driver's seat. He can do what he wants. He can pick who he wants. He's got no essential promoter anymore. He's not tied to a promoter. I heard DAZN offered him buku bucks again to re-sign. He went, nope. I'm going to do one fight at a time with you guys, or whoever. He likes Eddie Hearn. So he's in a perfect position.
Well, and we're looking at him being, as Charles said, he wants to fight 3 times this year. Right? Now, if that happens, doesn't it shine the spotlight on the previous configuration, and I won't throw their names out there, you can if you want, of keeping him from fighting? So when we ask that question, is it management or is it the fighter who's keeping him from fighting? Doesn't that pretty much tell us the answer to that, Charles?
Oh, no doubt. Now, I mean, before it was like, okay, maybe you can point to those other individuals that he had to work with, but now he calls his own shots. So therefore, his fight by fight, he can fight who he wants to. I mean, the only thing that's really holding him perhaps might be if he cares about the organization that has the titles, that represents the titles. But more than likely, it still doesn't matter to him because he's still the guy. So right now, the decisions and all of that in regards to his next 3 matches or bouts rests totally on his shoulders. So the excuses have been removed pretty much. He can fight who he wants to at any time, any place. He wants to fight from 160 to 175. I mean, he even can go to cruiserweight if he wants to. He can fight whoever he wants to because there's no parameters that are stopping him from doing anything. So it's all up to Canelo Alvarez, and it'll be interesting to see who he blames if he catches a lot of heat from the public.
All right, John, and we do this because this is the way the world of boxing spins. Somehow it always comes around to Canelo, but we're mentioning Triple G and Maniga. How does that play out in this whole thing? Because that's a name that I think those that know boxing know, but if you were to bring that up to the average boxer, like, who? Where the hell is he from?
Yeah, that's true, but Eddie Hearn wants Canelo Golovkin 3. You know that. Right. So if he can't get it, it's kind of cool in a way that he would put Golovkin in with a young gun. Munguia is only 24 years old. He's 6 feet tall. He can crack. I think it would be intriguing. But what you said essentially is true, Frank. Most people will go, who?
Mm-hmm.
Jamie who? Jaime who? Jamie? Is it Jamie or Jaime? You know,
Jaime,
they go,
right,
what
right,
is it?
exactly.
Well, you know, it's Jamie, but that's what I've heard at least. But still, people would be going like, that guy was a champion. That guy actually is a champion right now. He's WBO junior middleweight champion. But it would be one of those where they'd be selling it all on Golovkin's name because most people know him. But I still like it just because I'd like to see Golovkin in there with some young guy who can really hit hard. And I think he can beat even at this. I think he can beat him because Munguia, well, since I didn't say much about Ryan Garcia, he's got a similar bad habit as Ryan Garcia. His head is up a lot. He gets hit a lot. So what would probably happen is it would be a war with Golovkin. And, you know, people love that. I mean, it would be a war of attrition. And Golovkin's been in a few of those lately. But
Right.
I think his technique would be enough for him to win. But that would, see, to me, that's intriguing. But, of course, I'm a boxing geek who loves boxing so much. But, no, right back again, Frank, that's a good point you made, that people would be going like, why isn't he fighting Canelo for a third time? What's going on here?
Right, right. Well, speaking of being a boxing geek and wanting things that maybe we don't know are going to happen, or we find out things that surprise us, as we've been talking about previously about the undercards and how do we not know this and who's going on here and should they promote that more? It was in the Garcia bout, I believe. The undercard in that was James Kirkland.
Oh, that was a week before.
The week before, right?
Yeah,
right. The week before. I'm sorry. So but that was the guy that won 3 fights. It was the title holder. That's not the title. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. So anyhow. So there's a question here someplace, and I'm not sure where it is. I'm just going to keep talking. I figure it out. But and Charles will back me up on this, I hope. We were, and I think a lot of people were, James Kirkland is the next, oh my goodness. This guy goes out here and bangs, and he was exciting, and then the world crumbled around him, but he had, Ann Wolfe as his trainer, who, if you remember Ann Wolfe and the knockout she had over Vonda Ward, and all these things were just amazing when this guy's coming along. And then his world kind of goes away, and now he comes back. Now, I guess my question is this, if I come up with a question. Even though the outcome wasn't all that great, how did we not know James Kirkland was fighting again? How is that possible? Even if it's just a feel-good comeback story or it's a let's make money off of this story, whatever. How did we not know James Kirkland was fighting again on TV? So what is wrong with the system? And maybe it was good they didn't promote it. Charles, what is wrong with the system, or right with the system? I guess you can look at it either way. When we don't know that someone that we thought was prominent at one time is fighting, and there's no story to it.
Well, I think part of it is when you have a secondary entity, that's what I'm gonna call them, that's producing the fights, and they're still unsure of where they fit in or how they go about their business. Then the stories that normally in the past, when we had the HBOs, right, and we had Showtime and really trying to catch up with them, you had other, even with ESPN, really trying to kind of go for that big bang of buck in regards to boxing. They had journalists, they had people that knew the stories, they had people that put stories together, they had these type of producers. But when you have a group, and when I say secondary type entity, when I talk about the zone, I'm saying that because of the factor that I think they're still new to the game. They're trying, but they're not really having the success that they thought they should. So with that being said, with the lack of journalists and the people that really understand boxing and what it takes to draw in the crowds, right? Then that's when you have that issue. Because even the people that are watching at home are going like, well, why don't they do the type of series where you're leading up to it, where you kind of featured a couple boxers and kind of talk about where they came from, what they're doing before the fight. And then in the end, you kind of go like, okay, let's do a little quick piece. This guy, James Kirkland, used to have Ann Wolfe, as you mentioned, as his trainer. He went through hard times. His mind seems to be a little bit right. he's trying one more time, which might be the last time for him to make it and save his life. That's compelling. Those are the things that people go, oh man. And then he gets rocked and you go, damn, what's going to happen to him now? But those are the things that keep you drawn in. And instead of just having him show up and you find out an hour or 30 minutes before the bout that he's fighting. So
he's on. What? Who? How?
But I think that's part of it, to your point, is when you don't have the people behind it, because what we have, everything is a right now type thing. Everything is kind of a in the moment type situation when it comes to journalism. And I'm not saying older or younger, but you have a lot of people that's just not taking the time to give us the expertise that you need to interest you. It's just, oh, he's on, let's do it real, well, we're on, let's do something real quick. But being quick and being first is not always the answers. Sometimes you have to take some time and slow down and prepare something properly, and then you get the response you're looking for, even though you may not be first out the gate. And I think that's the issue that we're having right now in regards to some of the secondary entities that are producing these boxing shows.
John, is it possible that they didn't know James Kirkland? They didn't know the potential of that story?
I think, you know what, this is going to, well, if it annoys someone, tough. I think
that's what we do.
People in our profession that write are lazy. I do. That is a good story. You know, he hadn't fought for 4 years since he got knocked out by Canelo, and he came back and won a couple of quick fights by knockout. Obviously, he's not what he was. He's 36. Right. He's slowed down. He's fighting a guy who's got power. So you could have went any way you would have won. You could have said the last roundup at the whatever. You could say that. I mean, I love those, right? I mean, you could go any cliche you want. Is this the last chance for James Kirkland? Yes. The fact that there wasn't much interest, I think it was because people figured, because I knew the fight was coming. I should have said something when we were on before. I knew he was fighting, but it was like, personally, I remember thinking he's going to lose, you know, because he never had a very good chin anyway. Right. But see, that really isn't the point. The point is actually, if you wanted to publicize the card, which was kind of a strange card, there were quick fights, and you could have focused on that just because you could have said, like I said, this is the last roundup for James Kirkland. This is it. You could have brought some drama out of that. And boxing has so much drama if you look at it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't do it. And I think because they figured that most people don't care at this point. And that's my theory. Now I could be wrong, and they're lazy, because that could have killed a good 15 minutes just talking about Kirkland and Ann Wolfe. And he's never the same in the ring if he doesn't have Ann Wolfe with him.
Sure.
He didn't have Ann Wolfe with him.
We know that. But again, we know that because we have the history. But see, this is the thing, again, where if you're trying to sell the fight or sell the card or sell the program or sell the sport, this is a no-brainer story, if you ask me. It's not about whether he wins the fight or loses the fight. It's about why is he fighting and what took him so long to get there and where did he go and where has he been. To me, that's the important thing. And again, this is a guy, this would be like, let's say if, I don't know, Keith Thurman just went away for 4 years and came back. Not to say that they're the same person, but that's where Kirkland was at one point. And he's just gone. Well, and Keith Thurman comes back in 4 years, I'm ready to fight. I'm like, where you been? What happened? You know, you would ask, and maybe it's a personality thing. I don't know. But to me, if you're trying to promote the sport, you promote the stories, because that's all you really have.
Yeah, and real fast, Frank, he didn't have a promoter behind him. You know, if he had Golden Boy, I mean, I got to throw this in. You see how I keep circling back to this. How they're promoting Ryan Garcia. I mean, it's ridiculous how they're, in my opinion, coming out there and with a throne on his head when he has no title. Give me a break, man. I'm old school. If you haven't won anything, I'm not convinced. You know, okay, fine. I will admit this. I actually chuckled when he went down in the second round. I went, ha. You know, so you gotta prove it. And he came back and won, and he showed some grit, and that's fine. And he did well. That's great. But the point is that let's not give him the crown until he wins it at least. But then there's Kirkland's. He's the old war horse. He's a classic story. But this is where boxing is at its most brutal, also, Frank. Because if they can't get anything out of you, can't get anything out of you, they're not even going to say anything anymore. It's got no promoter. God knows if he's got some manager who's probably just collecting what he can get. Mm-hmm. It's the old story. He doesn't know how to promote himself. He's never been that kind of a guy. He doesn't talk trash about anybody. Just keeps his head down, I knew somebody who knew him, said he was one of the nicest guys he ever met. Didn't talk much, but he was very nice.
Right.
So he was in a tough spot. It was basically he was at the mercy of what they wanted to do. And they're not really trying, what you said, they're not really trying to promote the sport. Because if they had, they would have focused more on Kirkland, but instead, the guy's had lost 2 fights going into that fight. He was 34-2.
Right.
And he gets nothing.
He was that close, right?
He gets nothing.
And again, and I don't want to beat this over the head, but it's a story. It's a story, right now, and to Charles' point is exactly true. If it's not happening right now, and we can't talk about what happened 3 seconds ago and what's going on 4 minutes from now, we let it. We're not interested, which is maybe the dearth of journalism. Actually, has been the dearth of journalism, but it's like when you get to the point where you're like, wait a second. As we were talking to Henry Armstrong last week, there's relevance there.
Yes.
If you want to find it. If you don't want to find it, it's not there. But this is why we, again, not to pat ourselves on the back, but the show we did with Ron Lyle and George Foreman is gone through the roof. There's relevance there. And some of the other legendary fights that we covered, there's some relevance there because it's there. It's relevant. So when you say that a James Kirkland fight, whether he's going to lose or not, whether he doesn't have it, doesn't really matter. If you're going to put him out there and you're thinking he's going to get knocked out in 3, well, then don't put him out there.
Well, that's what they were thinking. I think knocked out in 1.
Yeah, and that's since you put him out there, give us the story. It's like in the bubble, we had the Maloney brothers. The average fan doesn't know one from the other. I keep getting mixed up myself. But there's the story. We got the Charlo twins, we got the Maloney brothers. They came from Australia. Okay, you promoted the story. You didn't promote the fight, you promoted the story. It's hard to promote a fight. You promote the story. As we're looking behind you, the Intimate Warfare, Gotti Ward. You didn't promote the first one because who knew?
Right.
You promoted the hell out of the second and the third one. Because you now have the story. And that's what you get. So, and this is where, Charles, we're at with the King Rye, as we're supposed to call him now.
No.
They are promoting him. Right or wrong, good or bad, at least they're promoting somebody. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? As I said, right or wrong, good or bad. Is it a good thing they're promoting him? Because we seem to be, or at least I do, and this is who I am, I contradict myself all the time. I would think, as John said, you ain't won nothing, you're not the king. But if you name yourself Marvelous Marvin Hagler, at least we're going to pay attention to you.
Yeah, I think, I think it's part of their branding and what their mission is. They're supposed to publicize their guy, supposed to market their guy. They lost Canelo, okay, so they had to come up with the next best thing. So when you lose Canelo, he really didn't need a lot of work. So it's like, okay, whatever he does is a story, pretty much, right? Even if he's going to go to 168 and fight up against some guys that a lot of people don't know, nobody cares about it because they don't think he's going to be challenged. Regardless, he's going to get some coverage because he has a lot of fans and he has a big following and his heritage and people are excited, and that's okay. So when you lose that, then you have to make that up, and by making that up, you have to look around your camp and go, what's the next best thing?
Right.
And the next best thing, because of the background of his heritage and the way that he's been proven to be pretty dynamic at times, even though it's a little raw, is Ryan Garcia. And he took on the fight with Luke Campbell against a veteran guy that's been in there, and he took it on. It's the first one, the so-called mini, So people were entertained. They're like, okay, now you big mouth, we want to see what you got. So they put him out there, and he struggled. But yeah, if that's the next best thing or the next big thing for Golden Boy boxing or Golden Boy period, then yes, you have to do that. And all hands were on deck. So that tells you they were all in one way or the other. They had Canelo was there. They had the big boss, Oscar De La Hoya. Even Bernard Hopkins was there. So that's Golden Boy. So all of that together, it shows you they were all in for this guy, for Garcia, that is. So yeah, they're all in. They're all in. I'm not sure who else they're going to promote, but they're definitely all in on Garcia. Now, how fast they let him go and who he fights next, that's still up for debate. Even though he blurted out what he did, I think they're still going to try to make some wise business decisions. So it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it. But yeah, they're going to promote the hell out of him now, and rightfully so. Even though he's not a champion, I mean, I guess he is whatever, technically a champion, whatever you want to call him. Not the way, well, well, he had a crown, so that means he's a champion. He's a king, right?
Yeah, I got a crown.
But,
yeah.
but I'm just saying, to the point of he's their next guy, and they're going to promote the hell out of him. And with all of the money that they have and all of the backing, it would make sense for them to promote somebody. Because if you don't, you're wasting everything, aren't you? That's the point of it. They're in the business to make money and try to get more people to watch, eyes tune in, and promote guys. And when you lose the cash cow, you better find a way to make up that $50,000 deficit. I'm being sufficient. I'm throwing something out there. $50,000.
Well, look, I've been to Burger King. I got a crown, so I'm ready. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, all right. So, but let's look at this in a way that I don't think we've done before, because we tend to rehash a certain few things because that's what's there. That's what's relevant. Let's look at this in a little bit different way. All right. So, who are the major promoters right now? Who own boxing? Who owns boxing? Okay, we've got PBC, which is Eddie Hearn, correct?
Well, DAZN. He works for DAZN, right?
Okay,
Eddie Hearn's got DAZN, and yeah.
Right.
Premier Boxing is Al Heyman.
Right. Al Heyman. Okay, right. My bad. That's right. Golden Boy is De La Hoya. Top
Bob
rank
Arum.
is Bob Arum.
Top rank, yep.
Okay, so it's those four basically. Are we
Frank Warren in London.
Okay, Matchroom.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So those are the five that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else that is a minor league, AAA player that we're overlooking sometimes?
Well, there's Charles's guy, that clever guy that he usually has a poster behind him, who, by the way, I have to throw this in. When Ryan said he wants to fight Davis and Oscar said he's ready, Mayweather said one of our favorite quotes, which is, he don't want that smoke.
Right.
And I agreed. I don't think he does. So I had to throw that in just because I laughed when I saw that. Because he don't. He's too easy to hit. He'll be like Leo Santa Cruz. Bam.
Okay, so let's take a quick brief rundown of those promoters and the people that run them. Okay, so to get an idea out of there in the air, and also so we kind of crystallize our thoughts of good, bad, right, wrong. Are they doing what's best for the sport? Are they doing what's best for the guys? Or are they doing what's best for their pocketbook? So let's start with Golden Boy. Golden Boy is Oscar De La Hoya with as we talked about, Bernard Hopkins and a few other people. John, what is Golden Boy about?
Golden Boy hasn't been the same since Richard Schaefer and them split. This is just being totally honest. Richard Schaefer just really knew how to run the hell out of Golden Boy. Oscar De La Hoya does not. He tries, and Bernard Hopkins tries, and he had Shane Mosley with him for a number of years. I don't know if Shane is still affiliated with Golden Boy, but Oscar is he's just not a businessman like Richard Schaefer. It would be like Richard Schaefer trying to box. And nothing against Oscar. It's not his thing. It's not easy to run a company. and he's done all right. But what bothers me about Oscar is, years ago I talked to him and he said Golden Boy was gonna be different. He was gonna run it differently, and he hasn't. He's done basically the same thing as the other promoters. He said, I'm not going to badmouth guys. I'm not going to do it. He's done all that he said he wasn't going to do. Mm-hmm. So getting back to what you said, though, they've got some fighters. They've got Oscar Valdez and other guys that are there. I think they've got Jojo Diaz. But the main guy is Ryan Garcia, right? And Charles was right on. They have to put everything into the social media star, because that's the way it is now, who can fight a little, as we know. But they're trying to make up for losing Canelo. But you know what? I me being the amateur psychologist, got to throw this in here too. I was watching Ryan Garcia around Oscar, and like Oscar, I go, the body language ain't good there, Oscar. Yeah. I don't know how much longer he's going to stay with you, but Canelo is his friend, and Canelo broke with you, and Canelo won't even talk about you anymore.
Talk to you, right?
They just ignored each other like they were both the plague. If you saw them around, they walked around each other, and they used to be friends. So he might be, this is just I got to throw, if I don't say this now, Franco, forget. I might be thinking that he's thinking about throwing Garcia in there with Davis because he thinks he's going to lose him. So he better make as much money as he can right away. That sounds very cynical. But that's basically it. And they've got other fighters. They've got a good stable of fighters. But they were a really smooth running machine when Richard Schaefer was running them. And Oscar was like what was he? He was like he was the figurehead. It was his golden boy. Everybody knows that. The gold medalist. He's a true golden boy. Probably why they got King Rye. They think, well, we got golden boy, we got to have King. They got the gold again. I don't know. But they're struggling without Canelo, and they have to be very careful right now. So, yeah, that's why part of me gets it totally, obviously, with Ryan Garcia, even if it's not true that he's King Rye and all this, because you've got to promote him because he's your top dog right now. And Ryan Garcia seems to be loving it. So that's pretty much it for them. They've got, like I said, secondary fighters that aren't coming to my brain right now, but to maintain where they are as one of the main players, because they're not signing fighters like they used to. Mm-hmm. People are going to Eddie Hearn more.
Okay. Well, Charles, you've been to a number of Golden Boy events. We are in the mind, I think, that it's these multi-million-dollar, multinational company that employs thousands upon thousands of people. How big is Golden Boy? I mean, how many people do they employ? Just off the top of your head, how big is it? Not just the company itself. They're far-reaching, but is it like 7,000 people work there? Is it just a few hundred? Just like 10 or 12? I think. Who are the main players?
If I'm not mistaken, John, you can help me with. I'm thinking maybe a couple hundred folks
at the most.
Yeah,
at the most, right?
Max, yeah, because. Yeah, and it doesn't take a lot. You just have to keep people in the right place. And I think that's where Richard Schaefer was key, because from a business standpoint, the other part too that nobody talks about, and I'm not saying that you're supposed to give anybody credit for your success, but they had a no loss type situation every time that Floyd Mayweather hired them. All you had to do, he was the show. You just had to make him look good. You had to make sure everything was in place. They did that. So it was like automatic cash, automatic. So it's like, okay, we're here. We need to do this and that. In fact, you never really saw Oscar around it. Richard Schaefer knew that. Richard Schaefer said, you know what? You stand behind the scenes. We're going to make this money. I don't have a problem with it. We can have an ego. This guy's making money. This money's going directly from his account to our account. The better we make him look good. The more we make him look good, better, the more money we're going to make. And I think that's what it was. That's why Richard Schaefer was perfect. Richard Schaefer said he enjoyed the time with Floyd. Even Floyd said, man, this is like the best guy ever.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's a businessman. He comes in, he just lays it out for you. He makes it smooth. Okay, you handle this. Okay, we got to shoot at 4:30. We need you to have over here with somebody else, CBS. Everything was just logistically perfect to that point, which now all your talent has to do is go in and make it happen. And I think that's what's missing now, because you see you see Oscar in the middle of it, and it doesn't look smooth at all. And I know he'll never go back to Richard Schaefer, and you lost your top talent. So now you're scrambling. Everybody's like, okay, well, but then in order for them to come back around, I think what they're going to have to do, and you have to be careful, but they're going to have to let Ryan Garcia fight somebody major. And I think that's why they put Tank Davis out there, which means he's young enough to take the L, right? Take his licks, and hopefully he'll keep ticking. Because you remember when they pushed away from when Canelo wanted to fight, when he wanted to fight Mayweather. They're like, nah, no.
You're not ready for that, right?
Like, but I need this. And they're like, oh, right. And they hyped it real well, which if I were them, if you do fight a Tank Davis, whoever you fight, if it's Devin Haney, I will pump the hell out of it. This is our new guy. And that's how you make the money. And then you deal with the repercussions as they come down the line. So to answer your question, maybe a couple of people in max, maybe less than that now, considering they don't have the top names, because we don't have the big money coming in. You can't afford to pay everybody. You got to cut back on your round card girls, your wing card girls, and the numbers. A lot of people are being cut.
And that brings me, since it always comes back to money, not that money, but money. John, let's break down just off the top of our heads how the promoter gets paid. In particular, Golden Boy, since we're there, but just how the promoter gets paid. So we're looking at, they get a percentage of the gate. They get a percentage of pay-per-view. Do they get a percentage of advertising, what's on TV, or that goes completely to TV? They get a percentage of that. So when we're talking percentage of the gate, they get, what, 10%, 20%?
I think it's like 20. I'm not sure, 20%. Though. I don't want to, okay. I'm not sure.
Just a rough idea. So then pay-per-view buy. The fighter gets X and they get 20% of that?
25%.
25%, okay. All right, so we're talking on a big fight, we're looking at maybe they're bringing in $1 million, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. On a normal card, that like the card that we saw on ESPN the other day or on Fox, they're bringing in maybe $250,000?
They're lucky.
Okay. So we're looking at $250,000 spread across a couple hundred people. Times,
like I said,
at the most, yeah. I don't think it would be that many. Let's just say, and we try and put on, say, a fight a month. Let's call it 10 fights a year. So you're bringing in $2 to $5 million a year, spread across 100 people. That keeps the doors open, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So it shouldn't be. And again, I'll have to check my math after we get off the air. It shouldn't be to the point where it's like, oh my God, we need to do blah, 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 or we need to hold this guy, or we need to do that. You would think, because to me, it's a logistics thing. And as you say, you've got the figurehead in Oscar De La Hoya. You had a Richard Schaefer. You don't have that now, but you had a Richard Schaefer. And then you can say, okay, Oscar, you go and be the figurehead here. Bernard, you go over here. Shane, you go over here. And we can do right. And we've got 3 or 4 things going on at a time. You can run promotion for this. You can be that, whatever.
That's what they did.
Why don't we have more fights? It apparently doesn't take a lot of people to put on a fight as you're the promoter, because you're hiring a security company. You're not doing your own security. You might be doing your own PR, but you might be hiring a PR company. And as we said, there's not a lot of PR and marketing going on.
Nope.
You're hiring an arena to put on all the stuff that goes there. You're not staffing that. Now, it may cost you money to do that, but you're not doing all of that. You're not building the ring. You're not putting the ropes up. You're not doing all that. You're not hiring the officials. So what is the holdup, folks? And I know we said we were going to look at each individual one, but this seems to be the company to me that is the one that is most, what's going on? They have the most cachet in the marketplace, as I would look at it. They don't have the stable of fighters anymore, but they did. So, and let's mention, if you had it on HBO or whatever, you got more from that. What isn't Golden Boy doing that they could be doing as they're currently configured?
Well, I think it was revealing, in my opinion, when Golden Boy attached themselves to DAZN. That took some of that, what you're speaking of, away from Golden Boy, but I don't think he cared. I mean, it's going to sound strange to say, but if I was Oscar De La Hoya, just let's say that the company isn't doing as well as we even think, Frank. I mean, they were having shows in downtown Los Angeles every month, which was really good. That was cool. That was throwback. That was like the Olympic. I love that. They're not now. Obviously, the pandemic has affected all of that,
Right.
but they're not even talking about doing that anymore. When if things hopefully return to normal someday. But as Charles was talking, and I said this before too, if things are very like this, I would think about, and he'll never do it in a million years, I would think about calling Richard Schaefer and talking to him.
Right.
I know you're laughing because it'll never happen. I know, but Oscar reconciled with Bob Arum, and they were calling each other names for years, and they reconciled. Richard Schaefer might consider it because you don't hear his name anymore. He loved being the main guy at Golden Boy. He loved it, even though he was the co-main guy. He was, and you said it, Frank. When they had him mostly running it, and you had Bernard going to one show, you had Shane Mosley going to another, you had an Oscar going to the big one. They were smooth running. They were the mean machine, baby. Longest yard. They were cool. Everybody liked them.
Mean machine.
They have not been, they have not been a machine since then. They have been a clunker in a lot of ways. And when they lost Canelo, that motor stopped, to me, to a degree. They're lucky they got Ryan Garcia, but yeah, Oscar will never do it, and Richard Schaefer won't do it because I guess the breakup was so acrimonious. There's no way in the world, but I would at least think about it if I was Oscar, because he knows that he's not a businessman.
Right.
He doesn't have, and it's mean. He just doesn't have that brain for it. Not everybody can do that business because it takes a lot of bullshit and a lot of stuff. Not everybody can do it. And he can't. When he tries, it comes across as ridiculous. And
a little bit behind, yeah.
Yeah. Schaefer was real smart, real bright, just very redundant there on my part, but a smart guy, experienced guy, a banker. I mean, he knew what he was doing. As simple as that. He was just very competent at what he did. So they've got some decisions to make, because I know that they've cut back on their staff a lot in the last 6 months. So they've got to start really thinking seriously. Not that that's ever going to happen, but Oscar might have to swallow some of his pride in some ways and try to figure something out. But it's his company, so he can do what he wants.
Well, speaking of someone that we believe should swallow their pride, let's take a look at Top Rank and Bob Arum. Okay. Now, yes, I know. Now, Charles, again, you've been to a few of those events. Just, again, off the top of your head, Bob Arum can't be doing everything. He's 117 years old. He can't be doing everything himself. But how many key people do you think there are in Top Rank that are providing us what we see or don't see is kind of more accurate?
Wow. I think their staff is even smaller because I don't think Bob trusts everybody. I think he is close to the vest with that. And the reason why I say that is he's like the gatekeeper, because everything, you never hear anything coming out of them just like a surprise, right? It's always Bob Arum it's almost like he's at the desk going, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. So I think their staff is even smaller as far as the key individuals. And I think part of it too is the reason why you say that is behind the scenes, you would think about the negotiations that he will perhaps be having with Terrence Bud Crawford, because that contract's up in the fall. It is up in the fall. So we're at January 6th as of this show, and the fall comes real quick. So within 8 months, something's going to have to happen, along with trying to make sure that he gives him one more fight. So not only do you have to negotiate who that fight's going to be against, right? Of course, Crawford would love to have it with Manny Pacquiao, but Manny Pacquiao holds the cards there too as to who he decides who he wants to fight. And he's not pressed about that one way or the other. But with all that being said, I think it still comes down to Bob and maybe a few key people that have been with him for years. And the other element of this too is when Bob goes off the rail, nobody can bring him back.
Nobody's bringing it back. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. When he said what he said about Crawford, to more or less like, I'm basically taking the L with you right now. You know what I mean? I'm losing this money.
Losing money.
Yeah, yeah. You don't understand what I'm doing in order to keep you where you want to be and put you in this position. Then when Bob says that, that lets you know at Top Rank, he's the guy, has been the guy, will be the guy. And even when you add the whole connection with ESPN, they're riding on his coattails because of the fact of what he's been able to do. It's a good marriage, but it's still, here's the senior citizen, Mr. Aram, going off and nobody can bring him back. So yeah, I think it's really a tighter ship over there than it is at Golden Boy, because the other part too is when you look at the stable of fighters, they have a few guys over there that are up and coming and promising, but we know what the name is. The name is Terrence Crawford. So the question is, he loses Terrence Crawford, what happens to Bob Aram's stable in the Top Rank? Something similar that you might see, and I'm not saying it's going to be a collapse, but we don't really hear that name Don King anymore, do we? Not like we used to. And you might see something very similar take place if Mr. Terrence Crawford decides to move forward somewhere else.
Well, the concept of what Top Rank does or doesn't do, I guess. I'm trying to straddle the middle of this as best I can. It's the idea of we are going to deploy our fighters in a way in which it's advantageous to us, not necessarily advantageous to them. So, because I'm going to assume that it may be 50 some people working at Top Rank and key people maybe about 12 or 15, is that why it seems like, okay, we're going to work on one thing at a time, as opposed to if we have a lot of people doing things, we can do multiple things going on here? John, does that seem reasonable, or is that kind of just fitting in a theory into the reality?
No, I think that's very reasonable. And if you compare it to, say, Eddie Hearn, who I believe is the best promoter out there right now, he had a show in England and he had a show in the United States.
Right.
So he was jetting back and forth. I mean, his company is a smooth running machine, if you ever notice. I mean, he loves his fighters. You can have an opinion about him, but he loves his fighters. And he tries to get good deals for them, I believe. And every time he would speak at wherever, everybody would boo him, which always cracked him up, which made me smile that he thought it was funny. Everybody would boo him. He doesn't take himself all that seriously. But I'm just forget about all that. I mean, I interviewed him once, and he was actually very nice, which I was impressed by. You never know with these guys. There could be grouches. You just don't know. He was very nice. I mean, who the hell was I? That was like 9 years ago in Oakland. So it was actually after Andre Ward fought Paul Smith. So it wasn't 9 years ago. It was probably 6 years ago. But I think he's the model of what you want. He's got a great stable of fighters. And he's younger. His father was a promoter. So he learned at the knee of his dad. So he's like to me, he's not Richard Schaefer, but he's like a combination. He's a real good promoter, and he seems, I mean, when they were doing those shows out of his backyard or whatever, that was hilarious. I thought, I don't see any shows out of Oscar's backyard.
Nope.
Or Bob Aram's backyard. So he's cutting edge. He's not even 40 yet, I don't think. He's like 39. So he's got that advantage. But from what I've seen, you're talking about and he's got a lot more employees too, Frank, a lot more employees than Golden Boy and Top Rank. He's up there probably 400 or 500 in the UK. And he runs his company smooth. So the other promoters might complain about him, but I just think it's jealousy sometimes, because he's right there on top of things. And being a promoter is like kind of being a politician too. So you got to be a little bit of a snake in the grass. You got to talk out of both sides of your mouth, and like they're doing probably right now, Washington. But I think that if you want to be nowadays a promoter, you have to be more like how he is, because he tends to be more flexible You know, he annoys me when he marinates fights too much, but he really wants to put on Joshua and Fury this year. So you're talking about the big main promoters. To me, he's doing the best job of all of them.
And does it seem that as we're going to look at, well, let's look at Al Heyman in the zone. Did they just happen to time things at the worst possible time to do what they were doing? Or were there cracks in the foundation before we got to that, Chuck?
We'll see it's bizarre. When you talk about the zone, we're talking about the zone, right?
Right.
Okay. I think there were cracks in the foundation, and I'm not sure if they had the wherewithal or they had the game plan to get it done, right? And I think they had a great talent, and the talent sometimes can carry you through, even in difficult times. You kind of, well, hell, we really don't need to be that great at certain things because, hell, it's Canelo. Whatever we do, people are gonna watch. It's Canelo. So okay, cool. We gave him a bunch of money and hell, show up, and then we'll figure it out from there, right? We can hire somebody to figure the rest of it out. But when you lose that and you start to realize that you start to have to count your bankroll, your pennies, start to look at things that make sense. Right. Otherwise, you start losing money because people are not watching and you really don't have anything to kind of substitute your guy. So, yeah, I think they're really trying to pick up the scraps. But I think the other point that you guys it's important to make is when you look at Eddie Hearn has the talent now, though, right? Because overseas, across the pond, I mean, it's exciting. You look at the heavyweights. I mean, Fury, Joshua, right? Anything else coming down, here's another guy. Oh, we never heard of him. Eddie Hearn's got him. Eddie Hearn puts it up like, if you thought Fury was the guys coming out of the depths of hell, we got another comeback for a story. And he just keeps it pushing.
Yeah,
now we find out more about the talent. So when you had the horses, you got to run them, baby.
Excuse me.
And he's running the hell out of them because he knows he's the guy. He came over to America, guided him a couple guys. So he has the horses, he has the talent. Compared to when you look at PBC, who has the horses too, but they're not pressed. It's like we'll run our horses when we want to, right? Because we're not pressed.
There you go. Right.
Yeah. That's what a lot of that comes down to them. Mm-hmm.
See, my thing with Al Heyman, and John, this is the question coming out of this is, we got the guy, and we've got the channel. So we've got both things that we need, and then we weren't able to capitalize on either one of them. We promised the people this for your subscription, and we weren't able to get, okay, here's 8 fights that we have rights to, and you can get them on pay-per-view or on demand or whatever you want to do, and you go, all right, and I've spent my $20 a month, I've seen all 5 fights, and there's nothing else coming on next month. Whoa. We've got Canelo, and Canelo is going to be the figurehead, the point of focus of what we do, and then we're going to get other guys because of that. And then 3 months later, we've got Canelo. And 6 months later, we've got Canelo, and he still isn't fighting. So, is that a problem of what happened at that particular time, or did they just not capitalize? Because when it was all put out there, this is what the zone's going to be like. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I want some of that. $20 a month, cool. Look what we're going to get. And then, well, yeah, I know, but
all right, $9.99.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I had the special package.
Oh,
or I got gouged depending on how you look at it. But anyway, so it's not a lot, right? So it's not a big deal. And then yet, here we go. So now, guys, I'm going to pause this for just a second. I'm going to put it's as if it's the NBA Finals and it's the Rockets and the Knicks, and now OJ is going down the street in the white Bronco with Al Cowlings.
Al Cowlings.